Come, let us explore whether you could be ready to teach meditation. Together, let us relaxingly recite. Patriarchal elitists have worked diligently to mystify the process of becoming a meditation teacher. I have to look up some notes I wrote for myself. Please bear with me. There we go. Okay. Come, let us take a good look at the so-called man behind the curtain. In many Theravadan traditions, one has but to live as a monk for 12 years in order to be considered a teacher. In some Mahayana traditions, one could study and meditate for many years, waiting in vain for one's shifu or roshi to appoint one a teacher. Biographies of some Zen masters tell dark tales of such pettiness and favoritism. In the Tibetan tradition, anyone who completed a retreat of 3 years, 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days, and 3 hours was labeled as Lama. The problem with that is twofold. First, children of wealthy families could easily afford the expenses of such a retreat, whereas those of modest means could not. Many decades ago, I ate lunch with a Tibetan monk of advancing years who simply could not afford to attend retreat and thus complete his training. Many Tibetans found a workaround. Let's try this again. Many Tibetans found a workaround to this financial elitism, eschewing the monastery to whom they were required to pay rent and living as homeless, long-haired yogis. Some of these were fortunate enough to find kind teachers as well as survive both exposure and starvation. The second challenge to such a system is that simply doing one's time is no guarantee of acquiring the intellectual comprehension or spiritual maturation necessary to truly be of benefit to others. An additional variable in Tibetan Buddhism are the titles of Geshe, Khenpo, or Khenchen, which, although could be likened to a doctorate of divinity in the West, are less of a promise of both intellectual and spiritual mastery and more of a commentary upon their effort, recall, and the wealth of their families. Zongjia Xuanzhui's Song of Enlightenment alludes to both the 3-year apprenticeship endured by novice monks and the sad fact that not everybody benefits from such training. As humanity perches upon the precipice of ecological collapse, as well as both economic and militaristic barbarism, we stand in profound need of great meditation teachers to help folks master the secular path of peace and love. Let us forget the myths spun by institutionalism and hearken to the wisdom of proto-Buddhism. In the penultimate passage of the Discourse on the Four Bases of Mindfulness, the Buddha taught that his path could be mastered in as little as 7 days. The irony is that it could be easier to become a Buddha than a fully qualified Dzogchen Lama or a meditation teacher. Both Malcolm Gladwell as well as Brian Tracy insist that one can master any discipline in as little as 10,000 hours. Let us consider various ways to sustainably train both our intellectual mastery as well as our spiritual mastery for 10,000 hours each. The key to this endeavor is the practice of informal retreat. Most students begin by attending my live streams twice daily, whether live or recorded depending upon one's schedule and time zone. One could begin by attending no more than 5 minutes per class. Each week one could add an additional 5 minutes, 5 minutes for each stream the first week, 10 minutes for each stream the second week, 15 minutes for each stream the third week, until by the end of the 12th week one's acclimated to comfortably attend for 60 minutes per live stream. After cruising along in this manner for a month or two, one may flirt with the notion of practicing a one-day retreat once every quarter or so. After multiple decades of experimentation, I found the following schedule to be effective and sustainable. 4:30 a.m. wake, 5 a.m. first study, 6 a.m. first meditation, 7 a.m. first break. 9 a.m. second study, 10 a.m. second meditation, 11 a.m. second break. 1 p.m. third study, 2 p.m. third meditation, 3 p.m. third break. 5 p.m. final study, 6 p.m. final meditation, 7 p.m. final break. It is imperative to make the most of the 4 sets of breaks, to connect with one's partner, children, and pets, thus ensuring their happiness and continued support of your spiritual training. Don't be surprised if your first single-day retreat is a rough ride. But every bump is an education. Listen to your body, respect your needs, and you can make the distinctions that could enhance the pleasure and productivity of future single-day retreats. As the months or maybe even years tick by, our single-day retreats could feel less arduous and more delightful. We could even find ourselves so looking forward to them that we begin to practice them 6 times annually and eventually monthly. This renegade Lama considers a bodhisattva to merely be one who feels defined by the mindfulness and meditation. Sorry. And a monastic to simply be an individual who lives as if on personal retreat. During one's first 3.5-year retreat, spend collecting their 5,000 hours of formal study and additional 5,000 hours of formal practice. One could be considered an apprentice Lama. During the second 3.5-year retreat, when one is completing their 10,000 hours of formal study and additional 10,000 hours of formal meditation, one could be known as a journeyman Lama. Once one has completed their second retreat and has demonstrated intellectual mastery as well as spiritual maturity, one could rightly be described as a Master Lama. Most people do not have the time and finances to live as if on retreat for 7 consecutive years. If one merely studied for an hour and then meditated for an additional hour every morning, and likewise studied and meditated every evening, then one could become a Master Lama in 14 years. Sadly, the United States of America has outlawed homelessness, forcing full-time meditation students to find a job, find a patron, or practice in prison. Although there are many Theravadan and some Mahayana monasteries in North America, most of them have become bastions of Yang's religious patriarchy, and as such, take a dim view to those who are determined to walk the path of being flexible, loving, rational, laid-back, lucid, egalitarian, cooperative, and kind. The author of this book is quite disabled and supports himself with the help of his domestic partner and by relying on Medicare, as well as Social Security disability. Over the past 26 centuries since the Buddha, there have been times and places where it was sometimes more easy and other times more difficult to become a Master Lama. Regardless of one's age, health, gender, language, or land, a minority of folks have become Master Lamas. I'm happy to help you however I can, through free videos, live streams, and books, that you too could help others. To master the Buddha's path of mindfulness and meditation, I wanted to add an additional bit if I could. Okay. Okay, this is where I want to add some additional stuff, so buckle up. So Mellow Yellow, I respect your intention. Sadly, I don't have much expertise when it comes to dementia. If I was you, I'm not sure if you're an MD or a PhD, but I would seek out the assistance of someone who's a neuroscientist who specializes in that subject. I've heard some studies that say that um, a whole food vegan diet can go a long way to preventing and sometimes help preventing dementia and sometimes reversing some of the symptoms. I'm going to continue typing. Please bear with me. Okay, in addition to mastering both the material as well as one's mind, it could be helpful to gain expertise in competition and public speaking. For that end, I encourage folks to read or listen to novels composed by contemporary authors, as well as attend local Toastmasters trainings. All right, that'll do you. Quick reminder that the free stuff that I mentioned can be found on the downloads page of my website. That is, whose links are found in the description area below the video or below the live stream. Well, I'm glad I took care of that. I can delete this note now. Yippee-ki-yay. Well, let me just first make sure I did that. Teacher training. Good. Okay. Let's hit Let's hit delete. Where is the delete button? Teacher training. Delete. Okay. Having completed our opening lesson. Oh, you know what? I think I forgot to add something. Let's add this bad boy. Let's add this fine looking fellow. Okay. Having completed our opening lesson, come let us now shift gears. It is Qui-Gon Jinn Tuesday evening. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is the Dzogchen Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I have harnessed my autistic special interests as well as my ADHD hyperfocus to spend about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that I can become your personal, nerdy, neurodivergent guide to nirvana. Welcome, my friends, to meditate like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. For the remainder of this evening's live stream, let's play with the latest iteration of very easy meditation practice text, or sadhana, if you're nasty. Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything's sex, including meditation teachers. What could that look like? Well, it could look like meditation teachers eschewing Yin's spiritual mastery of being flexible, loving, rational, laid-back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind, and instead embracing Yang's religious or irreligious patriarchy of being rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. Yes, it's counterintuitive, but it is consistently observed. Therefore, it should come as a little surprise that the majority of meditation teachers implore their students to actively focus and actively analyze. Sadly, the only way to do that is by relying upon discrete neural pathways, such as those found in the medial or dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. Overworking our prefrontal cortex can cause us to present with symptoms of depression, no less trigger our amygdala, the seat of both the anxiety and aggression that are antithetical to the peace and love that so many people feel are the meaning of life. Fortunately, neither the amygdala nor the prefrontal cortex constitute the entirety of our central nervous system. Case in point, every time we inhale, we are wired to automatically access the sympathetic nervous system ensconced within the middle third of our spinal cord. This bad boy has evolved to help us refrain from concentration and instead notice, vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. Every time we exhale, our parasympathetic nervous system, divided between the lower third and the upper third of that same spinal cord, has evolved to help us practice the opposite of analysis, which is merely physical relaxation as well as mental release. This relaxation release, let me rephrase, this parasympathetic nervous system helps us to physically relax and mentally release to such a degree that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, and even less defining. If we compete against our sympathetic nervous system by focusing, and we compete against our parasympathetic nervous system by analyzing, how can we passively cooperate with them? Simple. During each inhalation, We could silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this. And during each exhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb, ease. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist philosophy or meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I tend to check for questions approximately once every 15 minutes or so. Until then, let us sit sustainably and practice. Allow me to be trenchant. If you feel crappy, then be honest with what you feel. If you feel physically crappy or emotionally crappy or both, as you breathe in, notice it. Notice it vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. Whether that which you notice is external or internal, physical or mental, pleasurable or painful, interesting or boring, glorious or grotesque. Just remember not to fight your body's attempts to relax as you breathe out. We do not have to force ourselves to be laid back. We have evolved to be laid back. All we need to do is get out of our own way. We do not need to force ourselves to go with the flow. We've already evolved to go with the flow. All we need to do is get out of our own way. The naked lady, the color of a cumulus cloud, reminds us that for to be effective, our mindfulness needs to be vulnerable, passive, visceral, random, and fleeting. The color of this fellow reminds us that every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void, like the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which although could be tantalizing to the eye, is not graspable to the hand. The beauty of this couple reminds us that the highest love is spontaneous and uncontrived. The stability with which this fellow sits reminds us of centeredness. The abandon with which this woman sports reminds us of spontaneity. Our choices, utterances, and deeds could flow from love's centered spontaneity, propelled exclusively by awareness and release. Let's practice. As we sit in meditation, images of the past might cartwheel across the stage of our mind. We could remember the kindnesses of people, could remember the cruelty of people. We could feel all manner of emotions, and our mind could fantasize with many ways to have dealt with it, sometimes better, sometimes worse. It is not our job to either repress or indulge those impulses, but to merely notice them and relax in harmony with our inhalation and our exhalation. On the path of Yang's religious or irreligious patriarchy, it's very much about control, controlling oneself, controlling others, controlling neighborhoods, controlling nations. Upon the path of Yin spiritual matriarchy, it's about letting go. That can seem scary. That can be scary. But it is the path trod by Lao Tzu, Lao Tzu, the Buddha, Jesus, all the other great saints. Many people were raised in a Christian orientation. Many people are familiar with the Lord's Prayer, and within which there is a line, "Thy will be done," which is an utterance or an expression of surrender. The context doesn't read, I'm going to make others submit to your will at the point of my sword. The context reads, I'm going to be more concerned with you getting your way than me getting my way. That's an easier way to go through life. As children, we were petulant. We soiled our nappies, and we threw tantrums when we didn't get our way. As adults, we no longer soil our nappies. Sometimes we still throw tantrums, sometimes verbally, sometimes silently. Either way, we make ourselves miserable and our companions miserable. Many people seek wisdom from reading the 81 chapters of the Tao Te Ching. Ironically, the majority of the people read it actively in the tradition of Yang, the minority people read it passively in the tradition of Yin. However, within the Tao Te Ching, we are warned to always rely on Yin. Here's an additional example. The first to write of the Tao was Lao Tzu. He taught against ritual, for it is of Yang. It's trying to control things supernaturally. Many centuries after his death, people began practicing ritual in the name of he who wrote against ritual. That is not unique to Taoism. We see that in every spiritual tradition or philosophical tradition. It is almost as if when an individual brightly, dynamically teaches of Yin, those who teach of Yang are drawn to that teaching and then quickly bury it. Why, even within the last century, in California, there was a Chinese teacher, I'm going to butcher his name, Xuanhua, who founded many monasteries and translated many texts. And once he died, his students stopped publishing those texts, claiming them to be secret and only for special people, despite the fact that such assertions were to the contrary what their teacher said and what their teacher did. The fourth enlightenment factor is joy. But that never stopped people from being cranky and oppressive in the name of the Buddha. In similar irony, approximately 10 centuries after Lao Tzu, a Buddhist I forgot the verb I want to use. Reformer, taught against ritual. And now to this day, people are performing rituals in his name. Humans are silly, are we not? Performing rituals in the name of one who taught against ritual. is reminiscent of making love in the name of virginity. Yes? Concentration is very dualistic. I want to notice this. I don't want to notice anything else. And therefore, it can be distracted or interrupted. Mindfulness is being completely vulnerable to whatever pierces our sphere of awareness, be it a sight, A sound, a sensation, a flavor, a scent, an emotion, an intention, a thought, a memory, or an imagining. Mindfulness knows no concentration. Mindfulness knows no distraction. Mindfulness only notices things, interesting things, boring things, pleasurable things, painful things, interesting things, boring things, glorious things, grotesque things, external things, internal things, physical things, mental things, just things. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. Oops, wrong button. In approximately 11 hours, I would very much like to return to lead tomorrow's morning meditation class as well as group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.